Hello everybody, my name is Necroxis. I think we should have a little bit of a discussion about what happened with the Warbringers Sylvanas video, because if you could describe any one moment in the Warcraft community as losing its shit, I think this probably is a contender and probably would be the winner, because people are going batshit insane. And before I even get into any of the points that I want to talk about, don't harass people in real life over a video game. Whether if it's a writer on Twitter, or someone on Tumblr, or someone on Instagram, or on the official forums, harassing them, telling them fuck you, telling them they're a bad writer, telling them that they should be fired, telling them to go kill themselves, should be obviously completely inappropriate, but apparently we have to say this because people are so crazy that they are actually doing these things to a lot of prominent Blizzard people who make their presence known on Twitter. And I have to say, if there's one thing that'll make Blizzard not listen to you ever again, everybody, it's doing stuff like this. It's entirely unacceptable. Stop. Take a step back, maybe take a break from the game for a while, get some perspective on your life, and stop. I cannot believe we have to say this in current year meme, I can't believe we have to say this in 2018, but don't harass video game developers in real life over a video game story you may not dislike. From my own perspective, I hate a lot of the current WoW story. I hated Warlords of Draenor's story for the most part. I can't stand Legion's story except for the end. And I'm pretty vocal about how I don't like the beginning of Battle for Azeroth. I would never dream about harassing people because it's just a fucking game, everybody. Damn. Anyway, I want to talk about the response to the Warbringers cinematic. This is a bit of a ramble. I have a very few amount of notes, but I'm going to be wildly going off topic, so just forgive me ahead of time. But the first reaction I see from people who are upset, I would say that there are some people who are happy for different reasons, some people who are genuinely shocked, like I was, and some people who are knee-jerk angry about it. I want to talk about the knee-jerk anger because, and I don't mean for this to come off as condescending, I don't mean for this to come off as rude, but it might, so I'm sorry if it does, but it's not my intention. It's not the intention behind what I'm about to say. But people who are acting like this is a sudden turn, as a character phrase, a turn means suddenly they're acting a different way. Unexpectedly. For people who think that this is a sudden turn for Sylvanas' character, what story have you actually been following? Because Sylvanas has pretty much been this character from the beginning. Not even just from World of Warcraft when she was dead, but when she was alive, she acted a lot like this. She was a pretty petty character. She was arrogant, she was petty, she was boastful, she was a little pretentious. And that's why she was cool. Even when she was alive, when the Scourge are attacking Quel'Thalas, and Rangers were dying and people were telling her, Ranger Lord, the Rangers are being killed, she said that they were just arrows in the quiver and she didn't really care. That's where the arrows in the quiver quote originates from. When she was alive, she said that. And they bring it back when she becomes a Forsaken, but there you go. Even after the defense of Quel'Thalas is lost, and she's basically lost, Arthas is going to get through no matter what. She still spends an absurd amount of time just being annoying to him on purpose. You can say that that's good because Arthas was a villain, but my point here is it's another example of her being petty. Because she's already lost. There's nothing she can do about it. The unlimited army of the Scourge is here. They're about to destroy your hometown. There's not much you can do about it. I'm not saying to sit down and die, but once again, my perspective on this is to say that it's another example of her, I think, being kind of petty. When she teams up with Garithos, after she first has become a Forsaken, to retake Lordaeron, she kills him willy-nilly because he calls her and the Forsaken wretched animals. Or she also had no intention of actually ever honoring her agreement. And there are plenty of other examples. So to act as if this is some sudden turn for the character is, again, I'm not trying to be rude, but it's kind of ignorant of the story. Maybe go back and replay Warcraft 3 and Frozen Throne, and go read up on her page on Wikipedia, or Wikipedia, excuse me. She's kind of always been like this. So to pretend that she getting triggered by Dalaran saying that she grieves for her and burns down the tree. I was shocked that they were so blatant that they just made it Sylvanas. I wasn't shocked that Sylvanas herself did it, because that's what her character is. She's haughty, she's arrogant, she's petty and pretentious, and that's why she's an interesting character. I mean, I dislike her for what she is as a character, but I would never say that she's not interesting impactfully on the story. So, for that alone, I'm just... I don't want to say your anger is misplaced, but I want to say maybe you built up this character in your mind, and Sylvanas has a huge fan base. If you made a list of the top 5 most popular characters in Warcraft, Sylvanas is on that list, might even be number 1. Not for me, but just overall. But I think maybe people have this... It's weird because of how this character is, but maybe people have this like idealized view of Sylvanas, which is strange, because she's always been a bit of a villain. She's always been villainous. She's always been a little evil. Again, she murders all of Garithos and his men. Garithos, sure, he was a racist douche. He almost got Kael killed. He wanted to execute Kael'thas and all the Blood Elves. He deserved to die. He was mean. She murders him, murders all of his troops, mind controls the ones that she can, and resurrects a lot of them back into the Forsaken. And that's when she just comes back to life. That's not to mention in World of Warcraft in Vanilla, where she's experimenting on living human beings, not just Scarlet Crusaders, but other living human beings, like dwarves, and others, with biological weapons of mass destruction, the Blight. People really don't, I think, take into a full account of what the Blight is. It is a weapon of mass destruction. It is a biological weapon of mass destruction. And she experimented on it on living people, gleefully so, and her own people, without a care in the world. She did not care. In Cataclysm, she attacks and destroys an innocent capital of civilians and a faction who had nothing to do with the war, Gilneas. And you can't even use the excuse that it was Garrosh, because Chronicle now is the new canon that she wanted to do it, because she wanted more power, she wanted more land, and Gilneas was right next door to her kingdom. She gleefully murders the crown prince. She was trying to kill the king, but she ends up killing the crown prince and then laughs about it as she escapes. In all of Legion, she is trying to enslave an ally of ours, the players, both factions. She's trying to enslave one of Odin's top generals, to resurrect more Forsaken. Again, she's doing a selfish thing for herself while the world is literally ending around her. You can make the argument that Jaina was selfish for not staying with the Kirin Tor, and I would agree and disagree in some aspects with that argument, but how can you make that argument but then not also make the same one that Sylvanas was doing the same thing? Because at no point does she ever say she's doing it to fight the Legion. She sends the player to do it, while she sends herself and her whole faction of Forsaken to go and try and find Helya, make the bargain, and then go find Air to try and enslave her. And at this point, Odin's directly working with us to fight the Burning Legion. Odin's a dick, and Helya's a dick, so it doesn't really matter that Helya kind of got screwed by Odin in this scenario. But it matters that Sylvanas is actively... If the story was written realistically, Odin would not tolerate the Horde. He might not just destroy them outright, but he definitely wouldn't be allies with them after what Sylvanas does. Certainly not Air. Anyway, so Sylvanas has always been this character, everybody. And I know that I'm gonna just be called a hater and my point just dismissed. But I think it's important to distinguish your liking of a character for what the character actually is. Love Sylvanas if you want. Great. But don't deny and then lie to everybody about what she is. Howie's a great example of someone who doesn't do this and likes Sylvanas for the villain that she is. Great. A+, perfect. Love it. I love Gul'dan as a character. I'm not going to sit here and try and tell you some pretzel-logicked reason why he's not a bad guy. Because he is. Just be honest about what characters are. I had a brain fart there because I'm trying to think of so many different topics, and we're still on the first point. Just be honest with what the character is. And love them or hate them for what they are. That's all. Don't lie. It's a hobby. It's a story. It's a book. It's a novel. It's a game. It's a crafted narrative. Why lie about that? That just seems like a waste of time. I don't know. So, I want to talk a little bit about storytelling, specifically with Sylvanas and her future. Because, like I said, I was genuinely shocked that it was Sylvanas who burned the tree. In my video, I said it might have been Sylvanas, but this is my fault because I was so hyped to see the video, I didn't finish my statement on her. My whole statement was, if it is Sylvanas, I think it'll be because she's kind of like in an enraged shock of being compared to Arthas by Delaran, who I thought was going to do that if it was Sylvanas, and she kind of does, so, you know, kudos points for me, I guess, that are meaningless. But I thought she would have done so in kind of like an enraged shock, like the revelation that she's become Arthas is kind of like a blue screen of death moment if you're a TV Tropes fan, and she kind of does it, like, in the moment of shock. Which would have been it still would have been her that did it, but it would have twisted it just enough that the Horde could be like, well, that's not exactly what Sylvanas would do. She kind of was in a triggered state at that moment. I hate that word has been tainted by stupid political talk, because it's a great descriptor of what a lot happened here. Sylvanas got triggered by Delaran. The fact that Sylvanas set out to crush the Night Elves' hope, and couldn't, and the captain says, even after Darkshore and Ashenvale have fallen, and the Horde are about to lay siege to Teldrassil and take Darnassus, even after that happens, Delaran still tells her, you can kill all of us, but you'll never kill Hope. And that's what Sylvanas wanted to do. So I want to lead into like a minor point where, does it even matter that she burned the tree in terms of the lead-up? It matters that she burned the tree going forward. But in the lead-up, she and the Horde destroy Ashenvale. All of the forts, all of the bases, all of the outposts are annihilated. And it's not just the army rolls through and fights their way through. It's assassins using poison in the middle of the night, killing everybody at once by slitting their throats. And then we find out that all of the civilians get murdered as well. And Darkshore gets annihilated. The one shining light is from Sarfang, who, when attacking Lord Denel, says, let the civilians escape, because we're not going to kill civilians. But then, before that and after that, many civilians are killed. So it doesn't really matter in the scope of Sylvanas' villainy that she burned the tree, because she's already a villain at this point. Would you not agree? The Horde have done some heinous things and this all started from a false perception that Sylvanas had about the Alliance and what they were going to do with Azerite. And we know that the Alliance was not doing anything hostile with Azerite. As players even further back out of the story, we know that Anduin wanted to use Azerite to stop the conflict between us, peacefully, between the Alliance and the Horde. To use Azerite in a peaceful way to help the world. And Sylvanas saw herself as a goddess of death. So even out of the perspective of the story, even as players we know, there was a good person and then there was a bad person in this discussion. And Sylvanas was the bad one. So I just wanted to point out that the excuse before, like, oh, well, if she didn't burn the tree, then it's okay. She still caused all of this. She caused the War of Thorns. And be honest. If you want, the Horde are the villains right now. I'm sorry if that makes you upset. but it's the truth. And in Battle for Azeroth, they kind of keep acting like the villains in the Alliance when you see them in the Alliance perspective. The Alliance really doesn't do anything hostile against the Horde in 8.0. Meanwhile, the Horde is busy slaughtering a town of civilians. You encounter one of those there. The Horde have recruited a Blood Prince from the Scourge, who murders a bunch of Explorers League people. And Sylvanas is going around killing and or resurrecting Coltiran individuals in search of certain bodies she could possibly use in the future for blackmail. Meanwhile, the Alliance is searching for Gallywix. You know, the guy who caused the initial spark by sending all of his goblins to Silithus to mass mine the Azerite that we know he wants to use for weapons to kill everybody. I'm sorry if that upsets you, but that's what's going to be happening. And when it happens, if you don't agree with me now, when it happens, come back to this video, and you'll see that I didn't lie to you. So, that isn't to say that I'm defending the War of Thorns as good storytelling or good writing. Because I think there are a lot of situations that we went through in this event that are questionable. And I would just prefer that we focused on the things that actually were questionable versus things that get us upset. Because things that are bad is a very subjective term. Things that are inconsistent in the story and things that upset people are not the same thing. They can be the same thing in certain situations, but by default, they're not the same thing. So Sylvanas acting like a villain and killing a bunch of civilians by torching Teldrassil is an emotional response. And I agree. And people who are upset about it, you should be upset about it. You should wonder why your horde is being led by this villain who is doing villainous things. But once again, what do you expect when you made your leader the person who was secretly working on the very poison that was then used at the Wrathgate to murder the Horde and the Alliance? But there are other things we should be talking about. The fact that Saurfang really doesn't do anything post the burning of Teldrassil. Because Saurfang should have, at least in the cinematic, protested for a second and then get dismissed by Sylvanas because she's the leader and that's what she wants to happen. That should have happened in the cinematic. Because there's a big arc with Saurfang about honor and killing civilians. And they do it pretty well for as much as Saurfang gets hated on for not liking Sylvanas anymore. Side note, I think Blizzard really gambled wrongly when they thought the players' love of Saurfang could outweigh the players' love of Sylvanas, because now Saurfang's kind of hated among his own faction, which is sad because he's a really cool character and he is the war chief. I'm sorry, my nose is really itchy. He is the war chief the Horde deserves. But there is a large arc with Saurfang and honor, and we see it in the War of Thorns. We see it when he tells you not to kill civilians in Lord Denel. You're going to see it in the Battle for Lordaeron next week, and you're going to be seeing it going forward, I assume, because there's no way they would make this many examples of Saurfang talking about honor to not have it continue in 8.1 and beyond. But that should have been brought up in the cinematic. Because how can Saurfang say, let's not kill civilians, and then literally the next quest is him standing there while Sylvanas sets fire to Teldrassil, killing thousands of civilians. Another example you could bring up is Tyrande. Where is Tyrande in all of this? If you're Alliance, well, you both see her at the very end, Alliance and Horde, but for all the Alliance, where is she? What is she doing? Is she with the Night Elf fleet who are en route to Silithus? We're never told that. We just kind of know she's missing, and we don't really know where she is, and then she shows back up at the very end, and then leaves immediately for Stormwind. And for those of you who are Horde and didn't do the Alliance version of the war, there are several moments throughout the war where you directly hear people talking about needing the blessing of Elune, talking about the High Priestess and where is she, and even after the city gets set on fire, the Alliance do quests in the city. Will do one quest in the city where they're evacuating civilians, and the evacuation is being led by Mia Greymane. the Queen of Gilneas and the priest trainer NPC in the Temple of the Moon, whose name I don't... Athissa? Whose name I don't even remember. Why is that not Tyrande who's doing that? She comes and gets Malfurion and tells you as the Alliance player, Anduin gave me a Hearthstone to Stormwind, and somehow the Hearthstone can take 2 people, but whatever, that's not important. It's just kind of goofy, but I don't really care. Why did she not give it to him so he gets to Stormwind, the major capital of the Alliance, where he'll be fine, he'll get taken care of? Why did she not give it to him and then go back and try and save her people? That's an example of inconsistent storytelling. And the misuse of Tyrande in the current lore is something that really bothers me personally. And this is another example. She should have been in the quest chain. She should have shown up with the Sentinels. You see the Sentinels in the first part of the Alliance story when it ends in part 1, and you go to Darnassus and you rally the troops. You rally the Sentinels, you rally the Priestesses of the Moon, and you rally the bunch of other Night Elf defenders. Where is Tyrande there? Why is she not there? She should be leading the Sentinels or the Priestesses or both during this event. Have her there with Malfurion. Have her show up after the tree gets burned to evacuate her own citizens. She is a leader of the Night Elves, but believe it or not. I know it might not seem like it because she never shows up anymore, but that's a piece of bad writing, I think. And the only time she gets used is in a neutral storyline in Legion, where the only stank that she gives, the Horde, got changed in beta because Horde were upset, and Blizzard listened to them and changed the dialogue. What else can we talk about? I think that's it for... There are a bunch of other little nitpicks you could make if you want. Such things as the Alliance never use Azerite weapons at all whatsoever, so how come there are no other Horde people who mentioned to Sylvanas that the Alliance are going to take Azerite to kill us? Meanwhile, the only people using Azerite to kill are the Horde using it to kill the Night Elves. But I want to talk about... I just lost my train of thought after I said that. But I want to talk about Nathanos. So I think it's very interesting. This is a ramble. Twice now, in a very rapid succession, we've seen Nathanos hesitate or question Sylvanas' actions. And if there is a number 1 fanboy of Sylvanas Windrunner, it's Nathanos Blightcaller. Spoilers for Before the Storm. Are you ready? In Before the Storm, at the very end, Sylvanas is killing the Desolate Council in Arathi Highlands. She's just indiscriminately murdering all the Forsaken on the field. Even those who are running back to her side and have proven that they're still going to be loyal to her. Even Essie Benton, who is the leader of the Desolate Council, who tells Kalia Menethil to her face she's not going to defect to the Alliance, she's staying with the Forsaken, and begins running back to Sylvanas. Even she gets gunned down by Sylvanas' Dark Rangers. When this happens, Nathanos turns to her and says, "What are you doing? These are our people." And Sylvanas, in a paranoid, petty, says, "Oh, they're all traitors." And then now, in this cinematic, she says, "Burn it." And she has to turn and say it again because Nathanos looks up at her and doesn't do anything. I don't know if he'll ever turn against Sylvanas, but I think it's definitely intentional that this happened twice in a very rapid succession. And I think people need to not take what happens in 8.0 as some kind of proof of anything. Because 8.0 is literally the first chapter of the expansion. And you could turn that around on me and say Necroxis, but then why do you complain about Battle for Azeroth? Because I still think 8.0 has a lot of poor storytelling, but I'm not saying the expansion as a whole is ruined. I think the introduction to it is pretty mediocre, and I think that a lot of the 8.0 story is not very good. But as I said from the very beginning, they can salvage it with the patches. Because I think Legion got salvaged at the very end by the Argus patch, because I liked it a lot. But it's very interesting. Keep an eye out on what Nathanos does going forward, because it's definitely not a coincidence that it made him do this twice within the last 3 months. Keep an eye out on what Sarfang's doing. Keep an eye out on the last dev interview where they talked about how the heart of the Horde is still beating. Maybe the heart of the Horde's not Sylvanas, guys. Maybe what they've been pretty blatantly trying to tell you, that the heart of the Horde is Sarfang and Bane. And arguably Lorthamar. And the heart of the Horde's not Sylvanas and Gallywix. I'm not saying Forsaken, and I'm not saying Bilgewater Goblins. I'm saying Sylvanas and Gallywix, because there's an important distinction we need to make there. So, I can't believe I have to be the one to say this. Because I feel like the meme of me is I overreact to everything, even though I disagree with that meme. As I was explaining a couple days ago, I overreact to a lot of things because I feel like people give Blizzard a pass way too much for some reason, and I don't know why. And when I see a problem, the only reason it bothers me so much is because it happened many times already, and I know it's going to happen again with Battle for Azeroth, where during a testing phase, I'll be saying like, hey, here are some problems, A, B, C, D, E. Everyone will tell me I'm wrong. A month or two after the expansion goes live, suddenly everyone's saying, look at all these problems, A, B, C, D, E. And I'm sitting here like, fucking really? Like, for example, with this Sylvanas thing, everyone's suddenly saying, man, I think Blizzard is really screwing up the long-term story to give us shock factors. Hi everybody, my name is Necroxis. I've been saying this since Warlords of Draenor. Where has everybody else been? I haven't been calling it shock factor, I've been calling it the wow, isn't that cool factor. Where things happen that don't make sense, but there's like some Michael Bay-esque explosive event. And the punchline is, wow, isn't that cool? And now other big names in the community are saying it. I'm not going to call them out, because I'm not hating on them. But I'm kind of saying, where the hell have all y'all been in the last 3 or 4 years? Because it didn't just start with this event, guys. I guarantee it. It started in Warlords and got real bad in Legion. And Legion is really when I started stepping up that argument. Essentially everything with Illidan. I don't know, everybody. Does it make me angry? Yeah, it makes me a little angry that people are a year plus behind blatant problems that have been in the storytelling that other people have been pointing out and have gotten ignored. I'm not saying Nobble needs to get me on his stream so I can tell him all the bad things about the game. I'm not saying Bellular needs to listen to me. I'm saying when people are criticizing stuff, they shouldn't be automatically dismissed as hating the game. Because maybe, just maybe, we're doing it because we love the game and want it to be better. I don't know, everybody. I wasn't intending to turn that into I was right all along. Because who cares about that? I want the game to be good again. And I don't think it's very good right now. So, but, my original point is, when I was going to say, I can't believe I have to be the one to say this, let's all calm down just a little bit. Let's take a step back. Because when we have people giving death threats to fucking story writers on Twitter, we all might be going a little too crazy about a video game. I mean, I'm not doing it, and a lot of other people are not doing it, and most of you aren't doing it. But as a community, these shitbags are giving us all a bad name, and we need to be calling it out more than we are, and we need to cut the shit. And if you are doing it because you're super passionate about the game, your passion is appreciated, but what you're doing is not. Okay? So, I think those are the biggest points I wanted to talk about with the Sylvanas Warbringers cinematic. I think next week with Azara, we're going to get a preview of the 8.0 storyline. They're not going to, not preview in a sense of they're going to tell us what the raid is or anything, but a storyline preview, as in we're going to be seeing Old God stuff. We might even see N'Zoth. We might even hear his name. And we're probably going to get a motivation for what Azara is doing, rather than just causing chaos. We might get a hint at an overall plan of what she's doing here. Is she trying to free N'Zoth? Is he still imprisoned? And we know his prison, if he is still probably weakened. Is she trying to destroy it? Is she trying to foster hatred between the factions so that they have these big naval battles coincidentally right over the area of the sea where N'Zoth prison should be, if we look at the maps of ancient Kalimdor when it was one continent before it got split up. We should, between Zandalar and Kul Tiras is around the area where his prison should be. So is that what her plan is? Is she trying to gain control of the sea priests because she needs to raise the tomb from the bottom of the sea because she can't do it for some reason? I don't know, but I think we're going to get a hint of that overall motivation and what her plan is, which is really exciting because Ajar is my second favorite character in the story, my second favorite villain, just behind Gul'dan, and I want to see her done justice because she is super cool if you get her right. But yeah, thanks for listening to this ramble, everybody. Thank you, everyone who's watching the reaction. It got views way faster than a Jaina one did. I should have expected it, because this one is the controversial one, and the one we've all been talking about for months, and fighting with each other, and, oh, Azara did it! Oh, it's gonna be Sylvanas! Oh, Jaina did it! Oh, Azara's gonna pop in and burn it at the last second, because that wouldn't be super unsatisfying, would it? Oh, it was... who again, for some reason. He's burning the tree down that almost killed his wife. I don't know. But... thanks for watching it, and thanks for watching this. And if you have any thoughts about Warcraft storytelling in general, please leave them in the comments below. It's just a video game, everybody. Let's all calm down just a little bit. Thanks, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time.